Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the presentation of the Indonesian Integrated Institute for Sustainability. The reason for this particular name, I would like to explain, it is based in Indonesia and the main target is to create a sustainable Indonesia with a proper food security. We do, however, hope to cooperate with international organizations for mutual exchange and benefits. We say it is integrated because it is not excluded to food production, but to all the areas of sustainability, from food production to house building and waste management. It is an institute because we are focusing on a core location where all knowledge will be disseminated, and sustainability is the main focus of this course. We are calling on both Muslims and followers of other religions because this world crisis is beyond religion, and without cooperation we will only double our struggles. The individual Muslim's role in creating a sustainable future within the Islamic framework must be a reality of action and not just an ideology of discussions between intellectuals. The type of environmental problems that we are familiar with are the result of industrialization and capitalism, so they are relatively recent developments. The Islamic sources, on the other hand, are more than 1,000 years old and originated in a completely different context. So we can only draw on ideas about the relationship between people and their environment that are of a more general nature. The definition of sustainability from the Islamic reality is the balance that will create harmony between the believer and the rest of creation. This includes all the aspects of the servant's life and that of creation. The Fitra, which refers to creation as an original natural order. Tawheed, the unity of creation, which tells us that all things in the world are related to one another, and because they are all equal signs of God, all are equally important, valuable and worthy of preservation. Mizan, balance, is the state of well-ordered creation, which must be maintained or restored. Balance is the realization of his act or servitude to his Lord in the creation, and action that shows taqwa and yaqeen. Finally, there is Khalifa, referring to the role of mankind as the trustee of creation. It is the duty of mankind to maintain the order of creation. The fruits of the earth are to be enjoyed, but its resources must not be wastefully exploited. It is he who produces gardens, both cultivated and wild, and palm trees and crops of diverse kinds, and olives and pomegranates, both similar and dissimilar. Eat of their fruits when they bear fruit, and pay their dues on the day of their harvest, and do not be profligate. He does not love the profligate. Profligate means are recklessly extravagant or wasteful in the use of resources. Here we can see that Allah in the Quran is forbidding us both the use of excessive lifestyle as well as being wasteful. The example is even specifically using food and environment. Here we can see another example of how Allah is telling us to respect the nations among animals and insects. If we are not protecting and preserving the environment, it means that we are destroying these nations of which Allah has warned us not to destroy. Is it not the case that we have already exterminated thousands of species of animals through our destructive and wasteful lifestyles? And do we want Allah to be kind and merciful to us, both in this life and the hereafter? Then how can we ignore the words of our Prophet ﷺ when he is reminding us of the way we should behave towards animals? There are regulations known from the Islamic regions from former times that one could describe as instruments for nature and wildlife conservation, and attempts are now being made to try to revive these. Among these are the so-called Harim and Hima zones, for example. They include the idea of having protective zones around springs and watercourses, where, for example, no settlements are permitted, so as to keep the water from becoming polluted. There were also meadow and forest areas where people were allowed to go at certain times only, after the pollen harvest, for example, or when the dry periods were threatening. With privatization of land, intensification of agriculture, and increasing building, these practices have been forgotten. There have been attempts at their reintroduction, going on for a number of years, now as part of water, riverbank restoration, and species compensation projects. Man is an incredibly selfish and greedy creature, although one constantly striving for transcendence. Rootless in a cosmological sense, however, and unable to find true satisfaction, he seeks consolation in ever-increasing consumption and the perfection of technology. Muslim needs to find their way back to their original path. Most Muslims are unaware of the relationship between religion and environmental conservation, though they are conscious of it in a more general way. Nothing has so successfully eroded the ethics of society the way consumerism has. In fact, I believe that consumerism and secularism are close to being chicken and egg terms. Maybe it is so that to make consumerism more successful, secularism is needed. The Muslim world was gradually co-opted into the New World Order by force of arms and by force of economics. The first is history and the second present-day reality. And what the Muslims lost in between these twin processes was the sap of Islam and their unique way of perceiving the universe. I will not go into why this happened, but rather I will look at the current state of our health as individuals and as community. Where exactly are we, and what can we do to get out of the current self-destructive cycle we are in? We are today at a point in history where we have a plethora of means to destroy ourselves and humanity. Not only humanity, but the whole planet's ecosystem, with its plant and animal life, is on the verge of extinction. Muslims of the past 50 years have been at the forefront of this destruction by adopting Western norms and values while throwing Islamic ethics to the wayside. Today we can see the temples of consumerism everywhere, even in the holiest sanctuaries, Medina and Mecca. All of the problems we are facing today, whether it is peak oil, climate change, or the global food crisis, are a direct result of our sacrifices and worship to ungodly temples known as malls and supermarkets. We know more about the personal life of the priest of consumerism, sports stars, pop stars, actors, and industrial players, than we know about our Prophet ﷺ, who we are supposed to love more than ourselves. Most teenagers and adults know intimate details of their TV heroes and off-screen personages. Often, however, they don't even know the name of the mother of our beloved Prophet ﷺ, Amina. We have willingly been subjected to program brainwashing by the advertising industry and thus have become an ummah of zombie-like consumers. Do we really need to be told by Oprah how to behave in life when we have as a guide the best of creation? Since the beginning of the industrial age, mankind has been on a constant path of death and destruction. We have destroyed 2/3 of the world's original forest and tens of thousands of species, hundreds of thousands if we include insect species. The largest single species extinction in modern times occurred in the United States. At the beginning of the 19th century, the passenger pigeon was the most numerous bird on the continent of North America and one of the most abundant birds in the world. Destruction of their food sources and extensive hunting wiped them out within a single century. The last wild bird was shot in 1900. And the last captive bird died in 1914 in the Cincinnati Zoo. These numbers, which are confirmed, are staggering, and their rates increase constantly as we destroy more and more of the Earth's natural habitat. When Allah made us Khalifa on the Earth, He did not say we could decide which species survive and which. The word Earth appears no less than 485 times in the Holy Quran. And Sharia, the word for Islamic law, literally means source of water. Islam forbids us the wastage of water. We flush human waste and toxic factory waste right into our freshwater system and eventually into the oceans. Only 3% of the world's water is freshwater, and only 3% of that is actually available to us as potable water. How can we continue to pollute the water we are supposed to use to purify ourselves for ibadah? The Quran proclaims that it is Allah who sends down water from the sky, and therewith we bring forth buds of every kind. We bring forth the green blade, from which we bring forth the thick clustered grain, and from the date palm, from the pollen thereof, spring pendant bunches and gardens of grapes, and the olive and the pomegranate. One of the most destructive causes of pollution is consumer waste, and we have been clearly warned in the Quran Lo, the squanderers were ever brothers of the devils, and the devil was ever an ingrate to his Lord. We are destroying our water supply while multinational companies buy up the few water resources that are left. Soon we will have to buy expensive water in the supermarket because the water in the tap is not pure, and it may well be that by some standards this is already the case. We are told by Allah to eat what is halal and good, tayyiban, but the foods we are eating are in most cases not halal according to the definition, which is not causing harm, and in many cases this food directly causes addictive behavior. Most people who try to change to a more healthy diet find it extremely difficult because they crave artificial sugars and chemicals such as aspartame and MSG, which are substances that have an addictive effect close to that of heroin. Our meat might come from cows that have been slaughtered in a correct Islamic manner, but what about the feed of the cow that is full of meat from other cows? Both creatures are pumped with so much penicillin and hormones that by eating this meat you will be unable to protect yourself from resistant salmonella bacteria and become physiologically imbalanced hormonally. And this is not to mention the manner in which we are treating these animals from before they are born till their moment of slaughter. It is an outrage beyond comprehension that we remain silent in support of the industrial food producers who drive away indigenous people in order to grab their lands and turn them into grasslands so they can produce the cheap burgers that clog our arteries and dull our brain. As Muslims, we shouldn't forget that all the diseases are a direct result of what we eat. These diseases, however, soon develop and in turn are treated with drugs that are so damaging that there is no way they could be considered halal. We are swimming in these destructive habits, from the food we eat that destroys our health to the drugs that barely keeps us alive. We do this so we can consume more food, while we watch mind-numbing TV shows and movies that aid our escape from boring lives. Consumer junkies is a suitable description for the humans of today. You should see the documentaries Food Inc., Food Matters, and the Future of Food, and perhaps We Feed the World. Two issues that most directly threaten us presently are directly related to each other in that the effects of pig oil means a decline in its production. And with this, the industrial agricultural output will also decline and come to an end along with the oil output. Some may think this is good. Maybe with no oil we would have no pollution, and this sounds like a win-win scenario. I also would love to see the oil and other fossil fuels and their impact on the environment end, but at the same time we must ask what is to be done about the fossil fuel dependent food industry. To answer, we must first take a look at pig oil in order to understand the problem and hopefully find a solution. Therefore we must ask, what exactly is pig oil? Pig oil is the point in time when the maximum rate of global petroleum extraction is reached, after which the rate of production enters terminal decline. This concept is based on the observed production rates of the individual oil wells and the combined production rate of a field of related oil wells. The aggregate production rate for an oil field over time usually grows exponentially until the rate peaks and then declines, sometimes rapidly, until the field is depleted. This concept is derived from the Hubbards curve that has been proven applicable to the sum of a nation's domestic production rate, PDR, and is similarly applied to the global rate of petroleum production. Peak oil is often confused with oil depletion, but let us be clear, peak oil is the point of a maximum production, while its depletion refers to a period of falling reserves and supply.